A long time ago, I accompanied my friend when he went to GameStop to buy a PS4, and the cashier told him with his purchase, he was going to get a free download, a code to some game that came with the PS4. My friend didn't really care for the free download. He just wanted to play NBA 2K, whatever year it was. So he gave me the free download. I went home that day, and it was for a game called Last of Us. I had never heard of it. So I redeemed the code, I installed the game, and I sat down to try it out. Hours went by because I was completely immersed. The opening sequence of the game, to this day, to me, is the best I've ever experienced. Nothing in gaming has topped it to me since, and I've been invested in this story since that time. I played part 1 more times than I can count, and part 2, though it was not perfect, a lot of people didn't like it, I actually really enjoyed it. It had its flaws, but I appreciated the story and how bold it was. I replayed that one a couple times as well. Hold on, I know y'all hate me holding on. There you go. That's better. When The Last of Us was announced to be adapted into a TV show, I was excited, but I was also a little bit cautious. Video game adaptations rarely stick the landing, at least in my experience. Maybe I'm wrong, but I've never seen a movie that did really well by the game, the original source. In this video, I want to take a deeper look into Last of Us Season 2, but I'm not going to make my typical how they made that type of video. I want to kind of compare some things from the game to the TV show. A lot of people, including myself, felt like something was off with how Ellie was portrayed in Season 2. And honestly, it feels weird to say that. I really don't like criticizing work that I had nothing to do with and had no hands involved in. You know what I mean? It feels a little wrong and sometimes hypocritical. But the reason I can't ignore talking about this show is because what's even more puzzling to me is that Neil Druckmann, the creator of this story, the person who brought us the themes of revenge, guilt, and grief, is also responsible for some of the things that we see in the TV show adaptation. That disconnect made me realize just how different these two mediums really are, not just in how they tell stories, but in how TV has to operate within structure, time slots, seasons, episode limits, and so on. And maybe that's why they hired Craig Mazin, who's a writer and director himself, to take on a big chunk of the writing for season 1 and 2.
We have to tell the best television show that we can, but we also know that the whole point of telling The Last of Us as a television show is to honor The Last of Us. If you lose sight of that, then, yes, you will be properly screamed at.
But then I found out that Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin chose to only make 7 episodes in season 2, meaning they might have had an option to stretch the season out, but they only wanted to do 7 episodes, which is strange because a big issue with this season was pacing. Sometimes it felt rushed, uneven, and some moments felt like they didn't have the space they needed to breathe. I want to also mention that I in no way blame Bella Ramsey for anything. She was great in season 1. It was in season 2 where her portrayal of Ellie started to seem off a bit. Now, I think most people are smart and open-minded enough to accept changes being made if it serves a story. But when a main character shifts and it doesn't enhance the narrative, well, then that's when issues pop up. If you look at the show deeper, it's clear that it wasn't Bella Ramsey's performance. It was the material she was given. And that's really the big problem. At times in the story, it felt like after the death of Joel, the tone was way too lighthearted too much of the time. And I get that sometimes levity can add contrast, but in this situation, it felt like it was at odds with Ellie's arc of grieving. And it kind of softened the stakes way too early. Now, some fans suggested that this was Ellie's way of masking her grief or processing it differently than she did in the game, but I don't really buy that. In the game, Ellie was consumed by her loss, and you kind of felt that as the player. You kind of took that with you as you played as Ellie. She was grieving and angry the entirety of the game and focused only on one thing, and that was revenge.
I think I'm pregnant. What? Don't worry, it's not yours. What are we supposed to do now? Nothing. I just need to rest for a second. You're fucking kidding. How long have you known? It was late a few weeks ago. A few weeks? We could have still turned back. I didn't know. I wasn't sure, okay? I didn't want to be a burden. Well, you're a burden now, aren't you?
So we're having a baby. I mean, we and also, I guess, Jesse here. It was Jesse, right? So we're all having a baby. Holy shit. I'm gonna be a dad. Yeah.
So when Dina reveals that she's pregnant in the show, Ellie's reaction just didn't feel true to who she was supposed to be in that moment. It's a harsh moment, but it makes sense. And I always interpreted that scene as Ellie being a little hurt at that information because she's in love with Dina and Dina's telling her she's pregnant. And Ellie's going to respond by lashing out just a bit, just to kind of sting her back. Because I felt at that time playing the game that information stung Ellie a bit. It was different from obviously how she reacted in the show. I mentioned on Threads that I wasn't enjoying this season. And someone actually said literally that I was a bad person for having that opinion. Lately, it feels like if you offer even the slightest critique, you're met with responses like, this show isn't for you, or you lack media literacy. Personally, I enjoy hearing all perspectives, positive or negative. This is not a complaint, it's just an observation. I believe shows, films, music, all art in general should be open to discuss. I feel like we should be able to talk about all of it without it being personal or being that deep. Some of the changes in the show felt strange from the start. I'm talking back like from season 1. Like, why ignore the existence of spores in season 1 only to suddenly introduce them in season 2? Why bring up the idea that herds can detect sound through the fungal network on the ground? I'm with it. Okay, let's explore it. We didn't. I think they might have shown a shot of that happening once in season 2. That's it. So honestly, we barely saw Infected in season 2. So there's that as well. What was the point of the Infected being able to do this and then we just never see it again, or it's not really talked about? It kind of just felt inconsistent and underdeveloped. For me, the flashback episode is what really dragged the season down. And it's mainly because of how the flashbacks were structured. Don't get me wrong, the themes were there and you could tell that they were aiming for the same emotional weight. But I really wish they had handled that porch scene exactly like they did it in the game. If there was a moment that deserved a 1-to-1 adaptation, it was the moment where Joel tells Ellie that he saved her and that he would have done it all over again had he had the chance. In the game, these are two different conversations and they have the space to land. In the show, they're bundled together and it just doesn't hit the same. It feels rushed and something important gets lost in that process. In the final episode, there's this kid who gets caught and Ellie wants to save the kid and Jesse tells her no, but she really, really wants to. And I think that is a little bit out of character for her. It's probably the right thing to do, but the point of The Last of Us 2, and this is why it's so compelling, is that it forces you as the player to wrestle with the moral gray areas. It looks at Ellie and Abby and asks who's right, who's wrong, and whether any of them truly are right or wrong. And it doesn't hand you easy answers. It leaves you sitting with uncomfortable questions. The show, on the other hand, tends to over-explain. It tries to deliver the same themes, but it does it in a way that's oversimplified, like it's spelling things out for an audience that can't be trusted to figure out things on their own. I will say this, one change that is still on my mind is when Ellie runs into Owen and Mel. In the game, Mel's death was brutal, and the show managed to capture the same intensity, but they added a twist because this time Mel pleads with Ellie to save her baby, which made the moment really kind of tough to watch. And I give them credit for that. Both versions do a great job at conveying the weight of Ellie's actions and her emotional state, even if they take slightly different paths to get there. That's a moment where I love how it's done in game and I love how it's done in the show, and I'll take both. They both work. They both get to where we need to go. Anyway, those are my thoughts for Last of Us Season 2. This is not my typical setup or video, but just an opinion piece I wanted to put out there. I will be here for Season 3. And, you know, the only reason that I made this video is because I have a deep love for this story and tremendous amounts of respect for Neil Druckmann and his team and what they've been able to do with this story the last couple years. Had I not cared, I wouldn't have made the video. I urge everyone, though, to keep talking about shows and movies that they like and be open-minded, hear the other side. You know, I love breaking down things like this, and sometimes along the way I learn a little bit about myself. So if you stuck around to the end, I want to thank you for watching, and I always say keep asking questions, stay curious, and always remain a student of the game. Thank you again for watching.